this window? Just close this window with the StreamYard, or no?
No, leave it open. You're good. And we're live anyway.
Oh,
All right.
Hey, y'all.
Oh gosh. So hey everybody. This has been a crazy few weeks, and I asked Ashley if she would mind doing this live stream with me, and then I put out a call for Booktubers to do this so that we can talk about race and inclusion in the Booktube community. So yeah, I'm Erica, by the way. I think I neglected to say that. Oops. So, I'm Erica, and my channel is The Broken Spine, and you can I've only been not even a year in July I will have been on Booktube. So all of this kind of Booktube drama is new to me, and everything that goes on in Booktube, it's still very new to me, and I wanted to explore it with some experienced Booktubers, and we have some other Booktubers that haven't been on as long, but we're gonna introduce ourselves now. Ashley.
All right. So my name is Ashley. I'm from the Bookish realm. I'm sure most of you know at this point. I've been screaming it into the void. I've been here since 2014. So I've been a part of Booktube for 6 years. And when Erica asked me to join, I definitely wanted in on this conversation because I think this is the first time that we've actually had a live conversation about race and inclusion in the Booktube community. And most of the times that we've ever talked about it before, it's been on an individual basis with people talking about it on their own channel. So it's nice to have a community chat about it.
Neeks.
I'm Neeks of the channel Neeks. I've been on YouTube for a bit. I started with gaming and streaming stuff, but then I switched my entire channel over to Booktube stuff because it was important to me to talk about like books by people of color and fantasy by people of color. So that's why I'm here. This has all been very eye-opening. There's a lot more drama here than I thought there would be. And it's not bad drama. I feel like when people hear drama, it's like always bad. It's drama that needed to happen for change to happen. So thank you guys for letting my nonsense be here with you.
And Bethany.
Hey guys, I'm Bethany. My channel is Beautifully Bookish Bethany, and I'm about a week out from hitting 3 years on Booktube. And yeah, what did you want us to talk about? Why we're here? This is something, particularly with the race, for a long time I've cared a lot about, partly because I am married to a Black man, raising 2 biracial boys, and it matters a lot. So,
Yeah. So, Deidra.
Hi everybody, I am Deidra. I started my channel back in March of this year, but I have been reading forever, and I am here because I couldn't quite. First of all, everybody allowed me to be on this live. Thank you for that. But I couldn't quite get my words together to film a dedicated video just yet. So I am happy to be here to discuss all of this. And can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
So that would be me. I'm Kari from Caring for Books. I've been on Booktube. It'll be 3 years in August. I think. Years have sort of lost all meaning, as I'm sure you feel as well.
Yeah, for real.
I'm here because this is a really important conversation, and I live in Minnesota, where things started to blow up in the last couple of weeks originally anyway, and it's also a super, super white community because it's Minnesota, and that's just where white people moved. It's really important to bring attention to this and to have a discussion that is not just white voices, because our voices aren't the ones that matter.
Okay. So we're going to ask questions and see how it goes, and then we're going to open the questions up for those that are viewing. So that's the plan, right? Okay. So we're just going to hop right on into it. What does racism mean to you? Who wants to go first? I'm not going first.
Go ahead, Neka.
Yeah, racism to me is just anything that anybody does on the basis of skin color, specifically. So you change to the other side of the street when you see me, that's racism. Or something smaller. I get an F on my paper when it was clearly brilliant. Racism. It could be overt. It could be subtle. Racism is anything that is done in relation to someone's skin tone before you even know them.
Yeah.
Okay, I take a little bit, if y'all don't mind me going next.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's kind of crazy because at my job, we talk about race a whole lot. We have a whole a subcommittee dedicated to talking about race, which is really, really good. But just kind of a thing that I always love to share people is the difference between being racist and being prejudiced, because I think that those terms are used interchangeably and they're not the same thing. And it always bugs me when I hear people say, well, Black people can be racist too. And I always tell them, no, they can't, because for me and from what I've read, racism is systemic oppression. That means that a group is able to use different aspects of society to oppress an entire group of people. Black people have never had that power before, so we can't inevitably be racist. Do I think Black people can be prejudiced? Yes, I think everybody has a little bit of bias and prejudice within them, but as far as racism, I think you have to have that systemic aspect of it that you can pretty much control or use different aspects of society to control an entire group of people.
I will jump in real quick and piggyback off of what Ashley said with kind of a story. One of my best male friends is white, and he lives in Baltimore and works at Johns Hopkins. And he says we had this conversation not too long ago about how Black employees look at him with such disdain. And I was like, you do understand why that is. And then then the conversation kind of devolved after that, because he was like, well, they're racist. And I was like, no. By the very definition of racist, that's not it. You came in, and the way that they're looking at you is that you're going to take what they've worked for away from them. And it's not fair, and it's not necessarily true, but that's how some of them are looking at you. And I don't want to say that they're threatened, but there is this fear that I've worked for this, and here comes this white person, and they're going to put their thumb on me, and I won't be able to move forward. So there's a very real fear there. And I also told him, I was like, you have a unique opportunity here, because he grew up in the white projects, so to speak, and he had to go through the Black projects, in order to get to school. So he had friends of both races. And I was like, you're in a unique position to try and bridge this and to talk about it. So what are you going to do about it? And that's where the conversation just skidded to a halt, because he was not on board with that. So I just wanted to say that if you have an ability to bridge the gap, then take it. So Bethany, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I think where I've arrived over the last few years reading work, especially by Ibram X. Kendi, who I highly recommend anybody who hasn't read from him, is I really like the way that he talks about racism as anything that is ascribing specific characteristics to people because of their racial group, and that can also mean that can also extend like respectability politics and internalized racism of people feeling like, oh well, like the way the way to like prove yourself or something, to prove that you're not one of those people or something, is to like meet some standard of behavior or education or whatever. And that ultimately the reality is that people are people. There are good people and there are bad people, regardless of color, regardless of race. There are people who are selfish and there are people who are generous. And like kind of the goal of anti-racism is to move towards like not grouping people because of the color of their skin, because of their racial background, or even because of like their education or the way that they speak or like where they come from. And then there's structural racism. So it's like there's the individual stuff and the individual prejudices that we have. But then there's also the ways that like, you know, we're going to talk about the way YouTube does this. But that's where privilege comes in, and white privilege is that things are easier for you. It doesn't necessarily mean that like you internally don't like people of another race or are racist, but that, you know, because you are white or because you are male or because you are wealthy, there are certain things in life that you have an advantage of and that it come easier to you. And that just like is true. And there's people who don't want to like accept that that is a reality. Anyway, I don't know. That's a lot, but.
No, you're fine. So
I think to me, when I think of trying to answer this question, I just think about just all the little experiences through my life, because I am an only child and my mom comes from a really big family. So she would try to put me in activities that I might not necessarily be exposed to otherwise. So like Black people don't play volleyball. We don't play softball. We're not Girl Scouts. Now we are Girl Scouts, but in my Girl Scout troop, I was probably one of 3 or 4 Black kids in that troop. And I'm sorry, there's my cat. My cat yelled at me when I started talking. I'm sorry. But so to me, that means like, why didn't I get invited to all the sleepovers from when everybody would have a sleepover? And it would be like maybe 5 years ago, I found out that I didn't get invited to all the sleepovers. And I'm like, oh, you know, or like I took gymnastics and the teacher put me in a higher age range because I was stronger. And so like I was at the bottom of a pyramid of 14-year-olds and I was like 9 at the time. And I remember that, and my mom took me out of that gymnastics class and I didn't understand why, you know. And like, so when I think about what racism means to me, I think about little instances like that in my life that have happened. And it's just like, you know, even with the COVID-19, it's like, besides that it's pretty deadly, you don't want to be sick as a Black woman because they're not going to believe you necessarily. Like we had Serena Williams had to literally demand that they check her for those blood clots when she was giving birth. And it's like, if Serena Williams doesn't know, if y'all don't trust Serena Williams about her body, then what are you going to do with me when I go to the hospital if I get sick? So those kind of things.
Just speaking on that, Deidra, because that's a good point. I won't begin to tell y'all how scared I was, and I'm gonna share an experience when I had my daughter. You know, I ended up getting an epidural, and it was so crazy that one of the nurses, who happens to be Black, told me when the anesthesiologist walked out the room that he gave me a lower dose than what they typically. Yeah, because I can take pain. So they gave me a lower dose than what they typically give, and she already knew what was happening. So she told me that when the shifts changed, I think at 7:00 that night, if I needed more medication, to get them to contact the anesthesiologist on call. So the whole situation with healthcare, and especially Black women dying at higher rates when it comes to giving birth, that's a reality for a lot of us, because I won't begin to tell you how scared I was even giving birth to my child.
Yeah.
Here, Kari.
This is a hard question, not in an academic sense, but because I've never experienced it, so my answer tends to be more academic. Racism, to me, is a deliberate ignorance a willful choice not to believe that people are human simply because they're different from you, which is wrong on many, many levels. And it's shocking. Your stories about feeling like a white man is going to just keep them in place, or not having the proper medical treatment because of some outdated, ridiculous nonsense about being able to take more pain. I mean, what kind of it doesn't make sense to me, and I very much think it is a deliberate choice that we continue to believe is accurate because we don't want to face the hard truths that we have been oppressing people in obscene ways and ridiculous amounts, for lack of a better word. Ridiculous is not the one I want, but it's the one I have, for centuries. And we don't want to do the work to get where we should be, which is admitting that everybody is human and the color of your skin or any other immutable characteristic doesn't make a difference.
So, Ashley, somebody had a request if you could explain code switching.
All right, so I'm going to give you guys my best abbreviated version, and if anybody wants to add on to code switching. So I, when I say code switching, what I mean is that and I'm not going to say all Black people, but for a lot of Black people, we typically use AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English. Historically, it has been called Ebonics, but we no longer use that term. But AAVE is typically associated with a lack of education, poverty, violence. It's almost considered broken English, and it's not. It is a cultural thing. But when you walk into certain environments, especially professional environments that are dominated by white individuals, what we end up doing is code switching, meaning we talk in a way that's considered proper, which I don't think, the racial implications of saying that a certain dialect or use of language is proper is problematic in its own right, but that's what it is. And a lot of times Black people end up in situations where they say, oh my gosh, you talk so white. So sometimes you hear that from your Black counterparts. And then sometimes you hear from your white counterparts, oh my gosh, you're so well spoken. But it's very frustrating because, like, for me, AAVE comes naturally. It's just how I talk with my friends and my family. And even now, I'm code switching right now, because this is not how I would talk to my friends and my family. It would be a completely different situation, but we assimilate to make white people feel more comfortable. That's all that is. It looks like it's more professional. It makes everybody feel like we're more educated. And there's nothing to say that if you use AAVE, you're less educated, but that's the implications and that's what people think. And that's the social view of AAVE. So when we say code switching, we talk more white.
or my mom used to call it the phone voice.
Oh yeah.
Yes. People don't know if you're Black or white.
So confused.
And then you get off and it's like, hey, what up? So you gotta pick some.
I remember I was working at a restaurant and I had this lady argue me down. I was actually the assistant manager at the time. And I took her call. She was doing a catering order, and I also ran the catering side of it. I would deliver it and set it up, whatever. So I took her order and had her all set up, and I get to, I let her know that I was going to be the one to deliver it personally or whatever. And I get there, and she argued with me that I wasn't the person that she spoke with over the phone. I'm like, who would lie about that? Like, come on, not like. She literally called the store, spoke to the manager, which was a white man, and verified that I was the one that took her order. Like, it wasn't like there was anything wrong with the food. There was nothing wrong with I wasn't late. It was just, I guess I touched it. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know.
And
Go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. When I worked, it was during like a summer during like one of my summers in college, and I was working at like a wholesale club, and this lady asked me a question. And I answered her, and then we started to have this conversation. And she said she stopped dead in her sentence and looked me square in the eye and said, "You're so well spoken." And I was like, okay.
I'm not even saying that.
That is not a compliment.
It's not.
It is an insult. So please don't, white people, please do not tell a Black person that they are so well spoken. It is not a compliment.
Like, why is
Or you're
that
super
surprising?
articulate. You're so articulate.
Yeah, let's not even just say Black people. Anybody who is non-white, it is not a compliment. So there's the end of that. Because I can go on, because I just took a linguistics class, but we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
So anyway, anybody have any other comments?
I have only one.
Yes.
Can we also dead the phrase "you're pretty for a blank girl"? I hate that phrase.
Yeah, you're pretty for a Black girl. What?
Or insert any race. Like, just don't do it.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't be fat and Black. You're pretty for a fat Black girl. I'm like,
Oh God.
Oh God.
now, nobody's actually said that to me, but it's either one or the other, and it's like, bitch, shut up.
I couldn't. Mm-mm.
And I guess one other thing with this too that I've been hearing and I think is good, like I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, is the issue of colorism. And like there's, like there's a couple of layers to that. Like I can speak to, like, some of you guys I think can speak to the issue of like dark versus light skinned, but like I know for me, because my boys are biracial and one of them is like more white passing than the other. And so like I know I've had like weird comments from grown adults with them as these cute little kids saying, like, I literally one time, thankfully my oldest was like, I don't know, 2.5 at the time maybe, and he's like darker and has darker eyes, and the young one has like light eyes, and everyone's like, oh my God, light eyes, they're so beautiful. And anyway, so we were in the elevator in our building, and this old woman looked at him like, and said literally, "Oh, you have such beautiful children, and one more than the other." Oh, you're gonna tell me that like one of my children is like, yeah.
Hello.
So I mean,
Okay. Somebody in the comments section said something about a novel passing, or it's actually a novella by Nella Larson. I read that Maggie's bookshelf. She said "Read Passing" by Nella Larson. And does anybody here know what that is?
No.
I heard somebody talking about Bree Hill was talking about this in her latest video. She was recommending it. It's like a classic, I think, that is about these women who are all Black that can pass as white and their different experiences with that. It sounded really interesting.
And it's a really short read. And it deals obviously with colorism and excuse me. And one of the ladies, and I can't think of her name right now, she has 2 boys like you, Bethany, and one is lighter than the other, and her husband is darker skinned. And her friend from back in the day is like, why did you marry this dark skinned man when you could have married a white guy and maybe had babies that didn't come out dark skinned?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and the one who made the comment, she married a white guy who turned out to be a racist and called her my nig. Because, yeah, he didn't know. But as she got older, like a lot of us, when we get older, our skin complexion changes. So as she got older, her skin complexion got darker.
But colorism is I know because I wanted to leave my mouth dropped wide open. But colorism is definitely, I was having a conversation today on Twitter, not to go off on a super tangent, but like learning about stuff like that in history classes is the reason why people grow up to become adults and don't know what this stuff is, because they're not educated on it from the time that they're young. Whereas some of us grow up knowing that colorism, a lot of that roots back to even slavery. You have, field slaves and house slaves. The lighter you are, you're more likely to be in a house. But then even the rape that goes on or that went on that contributed to, people being lighter skin versus darker skin. I don't know. I just wish that there was more education on that as we grow up, as opposed to people not learning about this stuff to college. Because college, you can pretty much dictate what you're going to learn and what you're not going to learn. And some people go their entire life without even knowing any of this stuff whatsoever.
And so while we're on the topic of colorism, let's talk about colorism in the Booktube community. Let's talk about that for a hot minute. So, when I joined Booktube almost a year ago, I had no expectation that my channel would grow at all, because I am a dark-skinned Black woman with short natural hair, and I don't look like the majority of Booktubers, period. And I knew with beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was not going to have that kind of success. So I resolved myself to just grow at a slow snail's pace, and the people that I got that followed me or that subscribed to my channel, I hoped that they were subscribing to my channel because they like the content, which we're going to talk about subscribing to people now in a minute. in just a hot minute. So let's finish with the topic of colorism in the Booktube community. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I think it's pretty easy for everyone to see, like, your top Black YouTubers, Black Booktubers. There's an element of colorism in there. You've got, and like, I love Naya. I gotta use her. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Naya is very light, and she acknowledges her light privilege all the time. She really does. And she uses that privilege to uplift other people. I am a darker skinned Black Booktuber. I already knew right away, stuff was going to be slow. It's fine, whatever. But I'm also not, I'm for those of you who don't know, in the Black community, I'm what's called a brown skin. Okay. Mm-hmm. It means I'm exactly middle in the road. I am not dark skinned. I am not light skinned. I am the thing that they put in the middle when they don't know where to put you somewhere. That's me.
You're semi-acceptable, not acceptable enough.
Yeah.
Yes, I would fail the paper bag test in the summer, but in the winter, I'm fine. That's basically what it is. So if I only film in the winter, great. But when you talk about things, you've got like even Jessie. She's pretty in the middle as a Black Mexican, Afro-Mexican booktuber. Who else is on that lighter spectrum? Zoe, your book nerd Zoe. Very light, very high numbers. There's stuff that people have to start watching out for. And it's not their fault. It's because when they get sponsorships, when people look for acceptable, family-friendly content creators. They
look for book outlet.
They look for something that has an approximate.
In the comments, which I know, and Jessie, they, them pronouns.
Is they, them pronouns.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even mean to mess that up. Tell Jessie that I'm sorry to them. They know. I love them. But that is fucked up of me, so I do apologize. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The companies are looking for an approximation to what's comfortable, an approximation to what is white. We're here to discuss it. So that's why colorism is so prominent. When you look at all of these adverts for makeup, They're looking for something that's acceptable, as in close to white. And I think, I mean, I'm not the most eloquent person here, but I think that everyone clearly understands that and can speak on it a lot better than I can.
I definitely, I'm like Neeks. I'm in the summer, yeah, and I think someone asked in the comments, what's the brown paper bag test? So back in the day, they used to actually, and I can use it from the standpoint of a Black Greek letter organization. So I'm a Delta, and another organization, which I won't name for the sake of just things, was well known for using a paper bag to determine whether you could enter their organization or not. Like, if you were the color of the paper bag or lighter, you were considered worthy. And if you were darker, they didn't want you at all. And that's still evident today. I mean, people don't really walk around with, I mean, I don't know, but I haven't seen anybody walk around with a brown paper bag. But that is, in itself, that is colorism. Basically, the lighter you are, the more Eurocentric your features are. Just a few years now, Black women have been able to embrace their natural hair. That has been a long time coming for a lot of us, you know, having to fry and dye our hair to assimilate to what white society thought was appropriate. You know, that even in itself was just a system of oppression. And like Neeks was saying, I think it even extends beyond color. You know, if you're light, you have curly hair, straight hair, you have a slim nose, thin lips, because you'll appeal to their audience more, as opposed to someone like me. You know, I'm not dark skinned. I'm somewhere in the middle, depending upon what season it is. But I have a wider nose, I have full lips, and I just lock my hair. Like, nobody's going to want me to advertise for their company, because I'm not an image that would appeal to most of America. You could even see that in commercials. When you see commercials, a lot of people that get chosen for commercials, I mean, it's changed over time, but a lot of people that get chosen for commercials, so they have their diversity, or their person of color, their Black person, is usually lighter complexion with curly hair that, you know, may or may not be biracial, but they look like they could have some European features. They don't look too Black. So our base won't be too upset at us if we have them involved, if that makes sense.
If I can just interject, I did 4 commercials before Miss Rona came to town. Each one of them specifically called for a dark-skinned actress. I applied anyway, because I was like, I know exactly what that means. It means me. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So when I got there and there were actual other dark-skinned actresses present, I spoke to them a lot, and they were like, oh, what are you doing? Like, they were asking me what I was doing there. But I got the call back. I also booked the job. And I talked to a lot of them afterwards, and they were like, yeah, that's some bullshit. And I was like, oh, I know. But you have to, it's just as an actress, a lot of it's about you steeling yourself against that. But also, I do want to say that there is legitimate change going on. Because that 4th commercial, I did not book for being too light. And I was proud of them.
Yeah. I think with my channel, when I started it, I was the same as you, Erica, where I was like, I don't do my makeup, which is, I'm not saying anything about people who wear makeup, but I don't do my makeup. I kind of, most of the time my hair is not, I mean, for me, this is a good hair day. Normally it looks way nappier, you know, and I don't necessarily dress in the latest trends or anything like that. So I just resolved that I would grow slowly, like you said. And I am just like, ever since I tweeted about being in this live show, I have gained a whole bunch of followers. And I just hope that people who have followed me are looking at my videos and liking what they see and staying. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I really do. But it's been kind of crazy, you know, to see, like, I ain't got any more comments than normal. So there's that.
So before we go to Bethany and Kari, there's a comment, Drakini, I think that's how you pronounce their name. They say that they're not a booktuber, but an avid reader. Isn't it about the books?
Yeah.
Who cares about the tuber? It's about the book, the author, how the book made you feel. Am I missing something? Are they missing anything?
In a perfect
A
world.
whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot.
I'm not trying to like rain on them or anything, but really,
No.
they are.
No, yeah.
They're absolutely correct. It should be about the book and the author,
yeah.
and not what the booktuber looks like. So how? I already know the answer to this, and we all know the answer to this. Why is it not about the book and the author?
We watch people on YouTube for their personality, their spin on things, right?
Yeah.
So when you go to a channel, there's a whole lot of factors playing into your brain all at once, which is you're looking at the camera, the setting, or not the camera because you're looking through it, but you know what you're seeing is, are they aesthetic? Are they do they have fairy lights everywhere? You're processing all of this stuff really, really fast. So ultimately, sure, you look them up for the book, but you're staying for their words, their personality, and their views on that book. So it's really not that simple.
Yeah.
So
I want to, sorry, Erica, before you go, I'm going to touch on something, y'all. Okay. And Erica, I think you had, when we were all talking about it, I think you had a question that was based on this. The term implicit bias is really applicable to this situation. Okay. Yeah. So everybody has implicit biases where you don't even realize sometimes that you have preferences for people. And it's not that you're intentionally doing it. This is something that happens. It's not a conscious thing. Like you're going out and you're saying, I'm only going to look for white booktubers. You just have that bias of, you feel comfortable going in the direction of people who look like you. And it's not for some people, it is intentional. We just go ahead and keep it 100 and being honest. There are people out there who are going to specifically look for just whoever looks like them. But there are people who are doing it and they don't even realize that they're doing it, which is why I think this whole conversation about what's happening right now is people have to actively engage. You have to want to. You have to change your frame of mind to want to engage, or else you're going to end up still living in that implicit bias. We talk about this at my job all the time, even in hiring practices. You don't even realize that you may not be giving someone a chance because, it could be something as stupid as, oh, they wore a shirt that someone else wore that you don't like. So you're associating that same shirt with this individual. You're like, I don't like them. And you're like, but why don't you like them? I don't know. I just don't like them. So I think sometimes again, I always go back to the education piece. Sometimes if you're more aware and you understand why things are happening, you can change them. So it doesn't become a situation where you only have white people looking for white booktubers, or even some cases, I can't say black people looking for black booktubers because that's a whole different conversation. But I think that plays a role into why sometimes it seems like, oh, we should only be talking about books. Why does a booktuber matter? It's because your implicit bias is kicking in. That's why it matters.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to bring up, Ashley. Did you want to say something, Bethany?
Yeah, I think with this, this gets into stuff I know we're going to talk about later also, but like with this plays into the YouTube algorithm, because and it's
about the YouTube algorithm now.
Okay, sure. I think the thing is you see it more apparently or more obviously. I think with people of color, especially darker skinned, but this really what it is the people who have the highest click-through rate, which is the people who are, getting clicks on their thumbnails, because that's where it starts. A lot of it is like, number one is YouTube showing your videos, your thumbnails to people. And number two is what % of people they show it to are actually clicking on it and even starting to watch the video. So those are like a couple of different issues. But with click-through rate, the people who are probably getting the highest click-through rates, who tend to often get the most subscribers, with some exceptions, are people who are white or light, thin, and pretty. I mean, like across the board, you know, and then add to that this issue of like race and color, and it only becomes, you know, more so. And so, you know, so like there are different levels of, and there are things that you can do to make it more appealing. There are things you can do to like make your titles or your thumbnails more clickable, to make your video higher quality, that will help, but you're not starting from an even playing field. And so, you know, that's the thing, is like not all things are even. So like, and this is, I think, what gets complicated that I'm realizing is like, you can say, well, just do like X, Y, and Z to make your videos better. And it's like, yes, you can do that and it will help and you will grow, but you will not grow as fast, probably, unless you're just like really funny or somehow magically take off. In general, you will not grow as fast as somebody who is like white, thin, and pretty. I mean, that's just like, you know, sadly, that's kind of what it is. So should it be about the books? Yeah, absolutely. But like, you know, it's a video platform. People click on what they see. And yeah.
So we definitely need to, someone asked if Kari was okay.
Oh, I'm fine.
So did you have any, I was going to ask you if you had anything to say.
Just as far as colorism, if you haven't read Mandela's autobiography, I think it did a good job, albeit in South Africa, of kind of showing the differences in apartheid of the darker-skinned Africans versus the Indians who were there versus the white people who just decided to shove themselves on top of the pyramid like they always do, and how that became ingrained specifically in the prison. And what I remember very clearly is the uniforms. They used shorts for darker-skinned Africans because that made them children, which is super patronizing for one thing. But then as far as the algorithm goes, I agree with Bethany. Like, it should be about the books, but ultimately we have to work with what we have. It's not equitable, it's not equal, it's not fair, but that's why we're here. Because if this brings attention to it so that maybe, just maybe, we can get the algorithm to recommend somebody who doesn't look super white and super thin. I mean, they're fine, but like, we need more. So,
but that's also, I'm sorry, Kari, go ahead, finish.
Oh, you're fine. I was done.
Okay. So, but that's part of, we have to change how we look, which brings me back to Ashley's comments or statement about the implicit bias or biases that we have within ourselves. So before, and I don't know, someone asked, how can we change the YouTube algorithm? I think the only way that we can really work around the YouTube algorithm is we have to change our implicit biases and how, when we click on a booktuber or we're looking for a booktuber, that the coloration of their skin, we have to look beyond that. But before we can look beyond that, we have to figure out what our implicit biases are towards people. I mean,
yeah. I agree, Erica. Was somebody else about to talk? I feel like I've been running my mouth. I also feel like a lot of conversations that we've been having now about attempting to support Black booktubers also has a lot to do with people having a willingness to educate yourself. I feel like I've been beating this bush over and over again, but everything that has been going on, the conversations that have been going on Twitter, the conversations that have been going on YouTube, Instagram alike, people have to understand that this is not an overnight process. Nothing that we're talking about can happen in 24 hours. And I think that some people's expectation is that, you know, if I tweet out that, you know, I stand and if I subscribe and, you know, this and that. Like it doesn't happen like that. You literally have to work on yourself because everybody has biases. It's part of human nature. You have what, and it doesn't have to be biases about race necessarily. You just have your own biases, and you have to learn those biases and then work towards correcting them. But that's a process that takes time and a lot of self-reflection. So when we ask the question, how do we change it? Like Erica said, you have to change yourself first, because subscribing to one's channel right now because it is in the heat of the moment and it's this wave of we need to support our community, that's fine and dandy. But in the long run, if you don't change yourself, 6 months from now, you're going to revert back to the same behaviors that you were doing before. It's not going to change anything because you haven't changed yourself. So it's not so much for me about how do we change the algorithm, how do we subscribe and watch people's content. It's how do y'all change who you are as a person? And because some people have been so ingrained with certain things their entire life, you have to go backwards and re-educate yourself all over again. Some of us have known this stuff since the day that we were born. I've been educated on a lot of this stuff since the time that I could communicate with my parents. That wasn't everybody's experience. So if you don't have that experience, you can't genuinely sit here and tell me, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to work together, we're going to change the algorithm, but I'm not going to change who I am as a person. It doesn't work like that. It can't work like that.
So
I'm done.
I just want to say one thing. I guess it's Naomi's, Naiomis Cocoon. She said that she would like to support more Black booktubers, but they're hard to find.
So I noticed that on Ed2 Brody's video about YouTube and algorithms, maybe about 2 weeks ago, they mentioned that, you know how you can hit those 3 little dots and say you're not interested in a video, and you can tell them why, but the options for telling YouTube why you don't want to watch those videos kind of suck. But I have noticed that I have started, especially white booktubers who have like way over 200,000 subscribers, they don't need to be suggesting those videos to me. So, but I have noticed that when I go and I say I'm not interested in those, they will give me more white subscribers, but at least it's not the ones that are, you know, huge, like Books and Lala. I love her channel, but you don't need to advertise her to me. Like, everybody knows, if you're coming to YouTube to read about books, everybody knows her, right? Or am I? Okay. Yeah. So if I just put not interested on her and I go and subscribe to her, they'll give me other videos, other YouTubers. I haven't gotten any Black ones yet to be popped up in that, unless it is a kind of bit like Naya. But other than that, that has been helping get me at least see new faces. So hopefully eventually, if I just start not being interested in all the white booktubers they suggest to me, maybe eventually they'll give me anything else.
I will say, like, part of it might be needing to sometimes go out of your way to look for them and not just looking at the suggested videos from YouTube. And one thing you can do is, I know a lot of Black booktubers will put Black booktube in their video description, which makes it more searchable. And so what you could do is, like, say you like reading romance, you could say romance recommendations Black booktube and search that in the YouTube bar, and you'll probably get some ideas. So like, and I think this comes to the other way of helping with the algorithm is, like, subscribe to people that you're actually interested in their content, that you're going to watch it, that you like their energy, you are interested in the types of books they're reviewing and the type of content they're putting out, because that helps their analytics. And I've been seeing people here to say liking videos can help. So like, if you hit the like button on videos from Black creators, you're more likely to have more of them recommended to you. So yeah, and this is also, like, I think the genre thing helps. This is part of why I'm trying to do these videos of, like, hey, here's a genre of books. Like, I did one with romance of, like, 5 great romance books by Black authors and 5 Black booktubers who review romance. So if you're into this, go check out these people, so that it's at least, like, related and not just this, like, random list of people to check out that you may or may not actually vibe with. I don't know.
So I just want to say this. Adri at Perpetual Pages wanted to remind us that Mayana has a Black Booktubers list as well. So Mayana reads, if anybody doesn't know her. So check that if you want to know more or you want to find more Black Booktubers, check out Mayana Reads playlist. So let's talk about subscriptions. Ashley and I had a conversation about this.
I think the world knows how I feel about subscriptions right now because I was screaming at people, I don't want them. I don't need it. So I'll let somebody else talk about it.
Oh, so I will say this. I am appreciative of everyone that has subscribed to me. However, it burns my britches. So, because I jumped literally in like 3 days, jumped 100 subscribers in 3 days. And I'm like, well, I was here for 11 months prior. And I feel like I am being that token Black friend that you have. You're going through your friends list to see, is it diversified? And you find that, oh, I need a Black person in my friends list. So you're adding me. And maybe I shouldn't feel that way, but at the same time, I feel like you're subscribing. Like we said, it's the trendy thing to do right now. And come next week, next month, 6 months from now, I'm not going to hear a peep from you. And subscriber numbers are going to look great, but I'm still only going to hear from the same, 5 or 6 people that I hear from now. So what's the point? Anybody?
That's I told myself I wasn't going to speak. But that's the aggravating part about it is that, and my just literally, I mean, if you watch, how I feel. I feel like most people do know how I feel at this point. But it's true to have been in this community so long and to see my numbers jump right now in ways that, I mean, like, I'm like, good gracious, I've never seen anything like this before. It kind of makes you feel tokenized. You feel like, oh my gosh, like somebody really had to die for y'all to notice that I exist, and it doesn't feel authentic because it's like all this time, and now it's like I know that there are people who are authentic. I've had people who have commented who have said like I want to do the right thing, but for me personally right now, talk is cheap. I can't trust anybody's talking because it's easy to say right now I'm going to do the right thing, but doing the right thing is not easy. Doing the right thing and standing up for what's right now is going to cost people some things. It will cost you friendships. It will cost you a lot of steam in this community because eventually, because everybody's not going to do it. That's just reality. That's the reality of the situation. Everybody is down with it right now because we are moving at such a fast pace that you can't ignore it. And people who have been ignoring it have been rightfully called out. But once this dies down for some people, they're going to revert back. So it's like, it's nice and I appreciate some of it, but I'm like, at the same time, I don't, because I can't trust whether you're going to keep up this same attitude and the same level of activism 6 months down the road, because I think people forget this is not the first time that someone's been killed, police brutality. This is a new form, new age of lynching. We've been lynched for centuries, so it's kind of like
400 years to be quiet.
Exactly. So they've been lynching us for centuries, so it's like this is not new to a lot of people. And I almost feel like this experience or this incident is being tokenized as well. And I have a lot of pent up anger about that as well, that this this is the incident that everybody wants to pay attention to as if this hasn't been happening. I mean, shoot, if you want to be so blunt about it, you can't say that you haven't known about a case that's happened in the past 10 years. That to me would just be like you're living under a rock.
I think to me it's different this time because we have a number of factors working together. But I hope that people, like, besides the coronavirus, 2 weeks ago, we literally had people in several Capitol buildings with AR-15s demanding haircuts. And so to have a week later, the protests for Black Lives Matter and George Floyd's murder, it's like seeing those two together in such a short time. I think that's another reason why this is a little bit different from past experiences. That and the fact that we're all at home watching the whole world go. The fact that we have a little extra income if you've been laid off, and it's like, I think all of that working together. And I've only had my channel for 6 months, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I think all of those things working together makes this time and this situation a little bit different from past times. But it is understandable, especially for you, Ashley, for you to be so frustrated and feel upset about that, because YouTube didn't introduce, you've been around since 2014. I'm kind of mad about that now. You've been around since 2014. And you've become one of my favorite booktubers, Black booktubers. And I'm like,
I love you, girl.
You're like, this fucked up. Like, I'm mad about that, Like, your reading is something that I like to, it's just what I like, and I watch videos. So YouTube should know, like, why did it take so long, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But I really do. I want to, I'm 36. I am very jaded. I don't want to help anybody. I don't want to create no list. I don't want to, none of that. So I say that to say, when I get when I've gotten these new subscribers in the past 3 days, like I've lived, like Erica, I've gained 100 subscribers, and it makes me feel a type of way. But also, it's like, thank you for finally coming around, to know that we can read the Sarah J. Maas books. I'm not going to personally read it, but if I want to see somebody talk about it, I'll go find a Black person who read it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can, that they're out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll go watch Monty's videos if I want to, or anybody for that matter. I just hope that this time, and I do feel it's different, because I came to Booktube before I created my channel. I watched Lauren from the novel Lush read The Kimono Girl for Filth. That was at 2018. And that's how I even was introduced to YouTube, somebody being dragged for being a racist piece of shit, and years ago. But I still haven't gotten a whole bunch of suggestions or anything on my homepage of YouTube. It just makes me upset that they don't do, like, say for like Facebook, for example, they will hear you talking in your group chats on your iPhone, not even on the Messenger app, and all of a sudden you'll start getting ads for that towel that you talked about or that thing that you talked about. And it's like, why? They're all owned by the same people pretty much. Why can't YouTube do more things like that? At least advertise to me some stuff that I would be interested in. I don't want to sing happy birthday to Trump. Why? What are you doing? Like, what is that?
Bethany or Kari?
Yeah. It's so hard because, like, I don't know. I think the last few weeks have made me realize how many people there are who I don't know about. Because I do have, like Ashley, I found you because you were in my comments, and then I was like, oh, she's great. Like you have a calming presence. Like, I love your videos; they're great. But like I have, like there are several Black booktubers who I do watch regularly. But like I think what this has made me realize is there are so many more that I just didn't even know were on the platform because they don't show up easily, they don't get recommended, and like until the last couple of weeks, like I'm rarely on Twitter, which I feel like is where everybody like hangs out because it's crazy. But Yeah, I don't know. So like it's hard because I think, and I think what it's been making me realize is I haven't gone out of my way to go and look for people to subscribe to in a long time because I have so many people I'm already subscribed to, whether they're white or not. It's mostly been like, if somebody's in my comments a lot, I might like go check out their channel and see if like I'm interested in their videos. But like, I think what this is making me realize that I probably do need to go out of my way to go see if there are people who have content that I'm interested in, who are Black, because it's just not like showing up for me. I don't know. So it's, yeah. And it's hard having limited time to watch people I'm subscribed to, you know, like as a creator, but like trying to make time for that as much as I can. I don't know. Yeah.
And I think a little bit it goes back to what you said earlier, Ashley. We have to start working on ourselves to get past our inherent biases, because if we don't, I mean, changing the algorithm is great and it's a step, but the algorithm is only a symptom, not the actual disease. And so to fix both of them, which is ultimately what would be a perfect world, right? We have to start with ourselves, and then in the process of working on ourselves, we also have to work on overhauling our entire legal system, our entire justice system, because it's systemic, both. And we can't have one without the other, because if we don't change ourselves, then we're just going to get stuck in this for another 500 years. And to put it politely, only morons want that.
Yeah. So, anybody else have anything they want to add, or shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was a comment somebody made, this was a while ago, and I wanted to bring it up when we were talking about colorism, but we didn't. We moved on to something else, and I wanted to talk about color blindness. And
Child. I don't see color.
all right, go ahead, Ashley.
Nah, I'm gonna leave that alone because that's gonna make my temper fire off. I ain't got time for all of that. I said I was gonna tone it down. So I'm gonna tone it down. I'm gonna mute myself and let somebody go ahead.
Okay. I don't understand color blindness. I don't understand it. That's all I have to say. So if somebody can explain color blindness to me, I mean, I know there's the red-green color blindness and the blue-green color blindness, but that's all I know.
Extra.
Oh man. And Ashley, I put on the chat thing, but like if you click the plus on another comment and then the minus, it'll pull off the one that's on the bottom of the screen.
Where's the minus button? Y'all know I'm technologically challenged.
If you hover over another comment and hit plus to add it instead, hit minus again, and it'll take it out.
It just says show.
Yeah, so then hover over it and you can. Yeah,
there we go. Got it. All right. Thanks, Bethany. I was trying to let it slide like nobody noticed that I messed, and it wasn't me, it was a baby.
I believe you. The kids will do it. I'm amazed mine haven't come running in here yet. Well, I've been talking to white parents about this color blindness issue on Facebook because I think there are people who have this idea that if they just don't talk about race, don't talk about skin color, their kids will somehow not think that there's a difference. They'll think that like they won't notice and like be blind to like racism around them or blind to whatever. And that is just not the case. And one of the things I've been telling people is like, we started having to like actively combat colorism when my oldest son was 4 years old, and like, not because we ever said anything negative, but like seeing people walk down the street and saying, "Mom, they're too brown," and I was like, "Oh no." About this, like, too brown is not a thing. But that if you don't actively talk about it, it's an issue. And then he's coming home from kindergarten at 5 saying, you know, he wishes he had lighter skin like most of the friends in his class because we live in a predominantly white area. And he's, you know, like, so like we've had to actively talk to him and say, look, like, black is beautiful and brown is beautiful, and like God made us all beautiful, and try to, like, you know, put more media around that shows that, like, and do whatever you can. But I think that what this shows is he's picking up subtly on these cues at like 4 and 5 years old. So like, yes, your white children are noticing. Like, not saying anything is not gonna help. Like, anyway, so yeah, it drives me crazy. Like, you have to talk about it. You can't just ignore it.
I also sorry, Kari, do you want to go? Because I can shut up. Y'all just tell me because I can talk now.
Go for it.
I think too, it's offensive to use colorblindness because you are essentially saying you don't see that person and you don't see how systems may or may not be working against them. You know, you're devaluing, or you're what's the word I'm looking for? Invalidating. You're invalidating someone's experience by saying, "Oh, I don't see color. We're all equal." No, boo. We're not all equal. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. I think some people who say that think that they have good intentions, but there's no good intentions behind that, because if you don't recognize the problem, you can't fix it. So the same behavior, whether you're inherently racist or not, you're contributing to the problem as well. I mean, that's just my perspective. I've had people at my job tell me, "Oh, I don't see color." I'm like, "Well, then you don't see me, honey, because I'm black. And it's all right. You can see me as black. You can call me black. It's not a dirty word."
Okay. All right. So, shall we move on? We've only covered one of our prepared questions, by the way. No, two.
That's what I figured.
We did two. So let's see. How can we be more supportive? We kind of talked a little bit about that.
Can I add one thing to that conversation? Because I feel like the more I say it, the more maybe people will acknowledge it and actually learn the difference between the two. And I'm going to keep saying it until it becomes a conversation that we all have. Y'all have got to learn the difference between allyship and being an accomplice. You've got to learn the difference, because some of y'all are, first of all, I said this before, but I'm going to repeat it. Stop calling yourself an ally. You cannot give yourself that title. You can't consider yourself an ally to the community. The community has to give you that title. So for people who are saying, "I'm an ally," no, you can't do that unless someone has bestowed that upon you. And I also feel like it's great that everybody wants to be allies, but allyship, and if you guys haven't read the book Hood Feminism, you need to read it, because the last chapter in that book talks about going from allyship to becoming angry to becoming an accomplice. Okay. Allyship is not a bad thing. I don't want anybody to feel like, "Oh gosh, am I bad for wanting to be an ally?" No, because you have to start somewhere. But allyship is not where it ends, it's where it begins. Because once you become comfortable in that seat of allyship, as soon as something gets too uncomfortable for you, you're going to back away from the situation and say, "Well, you know, I was there that one time, you know, I helped this one time," and that's going to become your consistent excuse. It's all right to become an ally. It's important to educate yourself. It's important to have these vital conversations. It's important to step in if you see a family member that is saying racist things, that you jump in and you stop that conversation from happening. You're working on the individual level. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want to progress to an accomplice. That means that you're starting to look at the systems. You're looking at society. You're looking at systemic racism, because it doesn't matter how much you work on an individual basis, because we have people who work on an individual basis. And here we are still working with systems of oppression. We still have Black men that are facing mass incarceration. That's because the systems are still there. Not that people have stopped being racist, but you have to want to get to that point where you're willing to tear the systems down. I talked about this a little bit in my video where I said that people who are accomplices are willing to do some crazy things. They're willing to lose a lot. And if you want to become an accomplice, you have to be willing to lose stuff. I have lost friendships. I have gotten into arguments with my parents who have become, in some ways, to me, complacent. I tore into my mom a week ago because I said, well, how's this making you feel? Well, I mean, it's bad. And I tore into her about that. You have to be willing to take everything to that next level. People have quit their jobs. There are people who are protesting, willing to lose their lives, because if that's what it's going to take to tear down the systems, then they're willing to do it. So yes, allyship is good. And I'm sorry, y'all, the baby's in the background. Allyship is good. But at the end of the day, you need to work towards becoming an accomplice. And
I agree. So, Kari, Deidra, Bethany, Neeks, anybody want to speak on that?
I think Ashley said it all, but you have to, if you're not willing to at least get into an argument with somebody that you care about, then, what are you doing here? You just can't sit around and be complacent. The complacency is done. It's dead. We're done with that. So, for me personally, I have lost some friends where they just either didn't understand, they didn't say anything, they didn't understand, so they didn't ask questions. And to me, that's like, you can't even ask me how I feel. Regardless if you're trying to tell me how you feel in the situation, but can you at least ask me how I feel if you claim to be my friend and claim to love me? This is just me talking about my people in my life directly. But as far as Booktube goes, like, at least you should be able to, people are quick to correct pronouns. So let's correct people who are out here just being super racist too, and people are. I've seen that a lot. And I'm not one of the people that will correct somebody online, because a lot of times I feel like the energy is not necessarily, how do I put this? You can't really have a good nuanced conversation online. You can go off on somebody and read them and go on with your life, but you can't really have a conversation. I don't like, unless it's one-on-one, in my opinion. But just stand up for each other, especially if you claim to be an ally or trying to learn. And stand up for us when you see somebody doing something.
Okay, so in my video, we have said this about, we are not responsible for your education, and I don't understand. A lot of booktubers, Black booktubers, have put out how they felt and their thought processes, and two things keep coming up: I'm tired, and I am not responsible for your education. And yet, I still see people asking, educate me. Why?
Because it takes away having to do the hard work. A lot of people are scared of hard work, even if they're not actively aware that they're scared of hard work. I think a lot of people are scared of hard work. Like, I hate to bring the young lady up, but she put it out there for herself. I can't even get over the fact that the internet is not resourceful. That will stick with me until my dying days, because it's comments like that where it's like, you don't want to try, but you have to understand that Black people have to learn about white history, white culture from the time that we enter school. We don't get the luxury. We have to learn too. We have to learn our own history, white culture, Black culture. And there's some debates about whether white culture is really a thing, but I'm just going to go with it. So that's why Black people are telling white people, we're not educating you, because we've already had to learn about everything regarding you. It's not our job. Your job at this point is to educate yourself. But I think people are like, well, I don't know where to start. There are plenty of articles out there. Where do I start if I want to become an anti-racist? I'm sure you'll get 1,000,001 hits, but it's that lack of wanting to do the hard work. And for me, I feel like that's a gauge of, do you really want to be an ally, or do you want somebody to serve it up on a silver platter so you can say, oh, I did the right thing? Or do you really want to do the right thing? And that's a question that a lot of people need to start asking themselves. Do I really? And if you don't want to do it right now, call a spade a spade. That's fine. Keep it real with yourself. Stop putting on these fronts for people in a digital environment at that. It's a digital environment because all of us don't know each other face to face. So it's like in a digital environment, you're trying to save face when you can't even be real with yourself and say, you know what, honestly, like, I don't want to do this. Then don't do it. Don't do it, because it goes back to that concept of if you're not real about it, if you're not willing to put in the hard work, I promise y'all come December, you won't care. You won't care. And then you'll wait for the next huge thing to happen and say, well, you guys remember in June of 2020 when I did X, Y, Z? We ain't looking for that at all. We not in the least bit.
All right.
I think, this is true not just on Booktube, but in other places too. Like we live in New York, we go to a church here, and with all of this, our pastor reached out to us asking if we would be interested in joining a group on like race and racial reconciliation and stuff. And like we wrote a very long email saying some of the stuff about like not putting that burden on people, but also saying, look, like if you are serious about wanting to like do anti-racist work in our community, awesome. Like we have suggestions, but like it can't be a few sermons and some prayer meetings. That is inadequate to actually change people. And like to his credit, he came back and was like, wow, yeah, like, and I don't think we were the only people. I think other people also were pretty straightforward. And like that is what they're wanting to move towards, which is great. So I'm like, awesome, like let's do it. We have book suggestions, like you really want to do that work. But I think that's the thing is sometimes whether it's a religious community or whether it's Booktube, whether it's whatever, like people sometimes want these like easy fixes, and like real change is not easy. It is not quick. It is a slow process, and you get better with time and you learn with time and educate yourself. And I don't know, a lot of people I think don't really care to do that or don't want to do that. But hopefully, I hope that this will start the process of getting more people to do it. And it does mean saying uncomfortable things, pushing back on people that you love and respect. With the whole parent thing, even like I messaged my parents and was like, hey, I'm disappointed that I haven't seen you guys speak out publicly about this. And to their credit, they were like, oh, yeah, we should. I'm like, you have like a Black daughter-in-law, Black son-in-law, mixed grandbabies, like you have your own platform, like you need to speak on it. And they have. But like I think that's like saying those uncomfortable things and not being afraid. Yeah.
I think we have to be uncomfortable in order to learn, but you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And so many people are I don't want to be uncomfortable. I like my comfort zone. We all like our comfort zone. Nobody likes change. But change can only hopefully be good, especially when you're talking about something like this. But we have to step out of our comfort zone in order to affect change. And until we do that, then we're just going to keep going in this vicious circle, and we're not going to get anywhere, and it's disturbing. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I hope that by this conversation, those that are here will take it and they will, branch out and look and use Google. Mayana had, oh my gosh, I can't even remember what she said about Google being free, but she had this great quip about it in her last video, I think it was, about being Black on Booktube. And I'm sorry, I cannot remember it, but anyway, so maybe someone knows what it is and they'll bring it up. But Google is free.
$3.99.
Yes, free 99. That's what she said.
A couple people said it in the chat.
Yeah, That's, oh, yep, there it is, free 99. And it is, and I don't understand. There's a plethora of information that you can find on Google. When the libraries open back up, go to the library. There's so much information out there. And we have to address the past partly in order to move forward. And the past is just, it's an ugly past. But before we can move forward, we have to understand where colorism comes from, where even being colorblind comes from, and the overall oppression. We have to understand where that comes from, and the only way that we can really and truly do that effectively is to look back. Nobody wants to look back, and it is uncomfortable to look back, and it hurts to look back, especially knowing our past. So I don't know. It's gotta hurt. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna feel uncomfortable, but you gotta do it. So that's all I have to say on that. Anybody want to add anything else before we move on?
Just a quick piggyback on yours. You're right. We do have to be uncomfortable, because if we're not, we're never going to grow. We're very fond of the saying, no pain, no gain, when it comes to physical workouts, right? So it shouldn't be any different when it comes to emotional or mental. We have to work through the pain of looking back at our history, which is not pretty, to say the least, in order to change it and make it better for future generations.
Yeah. You doing the snap, Neeks? All right. So, how do we? Well, we're going to start to wrap this up. Is that okay?
Do you want to give anybody a chance to ask any questions?
Yeah, I just want to ask this one last question. And diversity has been talked about. We've talked about diversity a lot. Why do you think we haven't made long-lasting change, and how can we make and keep change? That's two questions, but we're going to count it as one.
I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that we're not willing to be uncomfortable because it hurts. So we just sort of, like Ashley was saying earlier, we do that one thing, and then 2 years later we go, oh yeah, I did that back in 2018. I'm a good person. I did the right thing. And yeah, maybe you did one good thing. Maybe you donated to an organization that helped get somebody out of jail the one time. But that doesn't do anybody any good if it's not continuing, if you're not actively trying to dismantle the broken, well, it's not broken because it was made this way, but the system that was made to oppress people for absolutely no good reason.
Yeah, I think making people uncomfortable, letting people be uncomfortable with this stuff, which I think a lot of videos right now are doing, but in terms of like lasting change, I mean, it depends on if we're talking about society or Booktube, because those are two like whole different conversations. Like,
I
get involved.
We can talk about Booktube, because I think being uncomfortable, because I think that's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think practically speaking, you know, if you are not a Black creator, being intentional about like the books you're buying, the books you're reading and reviewing, the creators that you're collaborating with, the types of readathons that you're getting involved in, like all of those things matter, and like might seem small, but might like introduce people to different voices. I mean, I think even what we're doing now, where you're having like collaborative work and conversations where people are getting to know different creators, I think could be important. And thinking about like, how could we, you know, how could we actually like create things, and not stuff that's just for the sake of diversity, but that's actually around books and around genres or around, and I've seen some of this happening. Like I know some of the big romance readers have been doing collab videos with like multiracial creators, which I think is really cool, recommending books. So like I've seen examples of that, but I think thinking practically in long-term solutions of like, what can you do as a creator? Yeah.
Ashley, Deidra, Neeks.
Sorry,
I
I'm
don't
trying to
know.
unmute myself. Go ahead, Neeks. Go ahead.
I was going to ask what the question was again. So sorry.
So that's okay. So how do we affect long-lasting change and some practical long-term solutions? I think that's repetitive.
This, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but people have to kind of hold their own hand here. I mean, Black people aren't going to keep throwing themselves at you like, oh, hey, heard you were looking for diverse voices on this specific book. Here's my here's my, everything. Here you go. We can't hand walk you through wanting different points of view. And again, and Ashley said this earlier, we're born like seeing white as the default. So we already, it's not hard for us to find a white creator to relate to because we've had to relate to whiteness for our whole lives. And so when it comes the other way with other non-Black POC or other white creators, we can't walk you through that. You have to want to find your common thread, your empathy, your human strand that connects you to these people on your own, really.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, basically, Neeks just took the words out of my mouth about the fact that we, as Black people, have had to learn, we've had to have a white education. And Ashley, I think, said it earlier, too. Our default education is white. And then on our own or from our parents or from whatever, we have to learn everything else about the world. And I want non-Black people to do the same thing and give us that same respect. I guess if you want to call it respect, that might not be the right word, but you have to do the work. You have to want to. And if you don't want to, leave us alone. I feel like that's, we shouldn't have to beg you to see us as humans or as equal as whatever. We shouldn't have to do that work, especially not now. Like, I really feel like if you don't do it at this point, you don't want to. And that's okay. We might also have to be okay with the fact that people don't want to,
I'm seeing a lot of good suggestions in the comments. Also about pre-order books by Black authors. Don't just check a box like in Black History Month. And I think this is one thing, sorry, I know other people probably have things to say too, but a couple years ago, I realized I wasn't reading very diversely. So I changed it and it wasn't that difficult. It's like you make it a habit. If you don't read a lot of books, like put one book on your TBR every month, like read one book even by like a Black author or a person of color, like diversify what you're reading and do it intentionally. And I think some people are like, oh, but I'm a mood reader. Like, you can be a mood reader, have a diverse array of books by people of color. And if you are in the mood for this genre, pick Alyssa Cole. If you're in the mood for that genre, pick N.K. Jemisin. Like, you can be a mood reader.
I know somebody did not use that as an excuse. I know nobody came back and said, well, I'm a mood. You know what?
No, I mean, like, literally, this is, like, I've heard people say this, and, like, you can be a mood reader. There are plenty of books in lots of different genres, like, by Black authors and other authors of color, marginalized voices. You just, like, have to be intentional about it, and, yeah.
Can I tag onto that?
Yeah.
Because, like, everybody wants to read about, like, being Black in terms of a trauma, when you don't have to. Like, I get it. The Hate You Give is a fabulous book. You don't have to read that every year. You can let it go. You can move on. Yes.
Dear Martin is not the substitute.
Romances. It doesn't have to be like trauma.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be pain. It doesn't have to be painful. Or if you want it painful, at least put it in the context of like fantasy. That's fun. Yay, magical trauma. Let's go. It's fun. Yes,
Can I rest on
magical trauma. There you
magical
go.
trauma?
Yep.
I want to challenge, and I don't know who, I can't, I can only see who's in the comments. I don't really know who's watching and who's not watching. But I also want to challenge those, if you have a bigger following, ways that you can help if you're trying to figure out how to help is use your voice. Because somebody in the comments has said, well, what do we do about events like, and I'm paraphrasing, I could be completely wrong, but it seemed like they were saying, like, what do we do about events like BookCon and VidCon and stuff like that? That's where it comes in, where people say, well, I'm an influencer. Keyword, you influence. They're going to listen to people who have the numbers to change things for them. These publishing companies and these event coordinators are looking at those people who have numbers, y'all, because they can sway people in certain directions. If you use the power of your voice and say, well, listen, unless you do X, Y, and Z, we're not going to do it. They depend upon us a lot. And I think sometimes we forget that these people, these publishing companies, these individuals that host these conventions, they depend on this community 100%, a whole lot. And don't worry, from the library world too, we're having talks about too, in that trash statement that ALA made at first, but I'm not going to get into that. But they look at, especially librarians, bloggers, Booktube, like they use us as their means to sway their markets. That's how they make their money. So if you have the platform, use your voice. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, if you have that platform, you're like, well, because I've heard people say all week, I don't get involved in political issues. Since when are books not political? I don't know what everybody else in this community is reading or what you're studying. But last time I checked, books are political. So I think that needs to stop being an excuse. And you can't tell me what to do with my channel. And nobody's trying to tell you, because honestly, if you don't want to do it at this point, like I said before, don't do it. But if you are interested, this is for people who are interested, because I'm done trying to convince people who don't want to do what they're supposed to do. If you're interested, use your voice. Your voice is powerful. Yes, there are those of us who are speaking out now, but when it comes sometimes to these networks, they're going to look to you for answers. They're going to look to you for recommendations. They're going to look to you to say, okay, well, what should we be doing now? How can you influence, those who follow you? Like it just, to me, it has always bothered me that people who are involved in the Booktube community don't use their voice for activism, because I don't know how that works. I don't know how people make that make sense, and how people say I don't do politics. I mean, I just don't know. I just don't get that. That could just be a personal thing on me. But if you are bigger and you are looking for ways, actively use your voice. Use your platform for doing the right thing.
I just want to say this. Books Like Woe and Perpetual Pages, they both mentioned life is political. So, and Adria at Perpetual Pages said, since when is existing not political? And I've heard that a lot. Why does being Black have to be considered political? So any thoughts on that?
This has been asked so many times, and the only answer that I could come up in my brain hole with was that we used to be property and then we weren't. So now all the laws that were put in place while we were property are now angering everybody, because we don't want to be property anymore. Obviously, we're not property to begin with. And we're under, like Kari said, the system was built broken. So when everyone's like, it's political, it's because it is. We didn't have humanity. We weren't granted human rights for the longest time. And we're still getting killed like we don't have them. That's why the existence of this right here is political at all times.
I mean, if you're living in the United States, literally like written into the Constitution, of like how do we calculate representatives for Congress is like has to do with, I mean, like it is political. It's just, yeah.
It is it's a shame, but we constantly they're talking about I don't know if it's coming up soon or if it just happened not too long ago about Black people and their right to vote. So yeah, it comes up every so often in Congress to pass the law to make sure for Black people to continue to have the right to vote. So
I'm sorry, we have to renew somebody's right to vote.
Yes.
And in this administration, anything is possible.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. I want to say it's been in the last few years, or it's coming up again.
So is this not so much? I think if we're talking about what I think you're talking about, one place to look at is One Person, No Vote by Carol Anderson talks about this. I don't think it's the right to vote. I think it has to do with how easy you make it, because there are certain places where they will try to make it difficult for Black people and people of color. Okay.
Right. Yep.
By like requiring forms of ID that are difficult to get, or like basically, so there is like, I think the Voting Rights Act is something that so the Voting Rights Act, it's like not that whether you have the whether you're allowed to vote, it's whether they're going to make it easy for you or harder for you. So that's a place to yourself to.
We hadn't even talked about gerrymandering or
child, I can't because I live in the South, y'all. And with voter suppression is a real thing. It's not something that I think people don't realize how real it is, because being a librarian, I work with people. I work in an all Black community that is lower income. That's where my library is housed. And you won't believe how difficult it is for people to get something like a birth certificate because of how things were done in the past, because they don't have any legal documents that match a birth certificate. So what they do is they create loopholes like that where people don't have the right, like Bethany was saying, people don't have the right forms or IDs to be able to vote. So in doing that, they can stop certain groups from being able to make it to the polls.
Yeah,
it happens. Gerrymandering, gentrification. I've seen it happen, like real life type of thing. Yeah. So I don't know.
Okay, we can go on with this conversation.
Whereas, like, we live in New York City, and here you do not have to have ID to vote. So like, you don't have to bring ID to vote. You just show up and tell them like your name as long as you vote.
Yeah, I was surprised when I went to my poll and they didn't. I pulled out my ID and they were like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "What? Okay," but I'm okay with it. If that's the way it is. People from DC and Baltimore, hey. So do we want to open this up to questions? Yeah. So if you guys, my child is really trying to use her voice. So yeah, so if anybody has any questions, ask them now, and we will do our best to answer. Yeah. Has anyone else dealt with family promoting your content in between their problematic posts? I know they mean well, but I had to shut that down.
Oh man.
I have not.
No, my family doesn't know I have a YouTube channel. So.
Yeah, I was about to say.
My family knows, but they rarely, if ever, promote my content. And I think it's because I'm I think we're the most like liberal people in our family. So it's, yeah. We love each other and don't talk about everything. So, yeah.
My mother doesn't like my potty mouth.
Do you guys subscribe to non-American booktubers?
Yeah.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Yep.
So
I do.
If I can remember once this is over, and I will go to, because this is being hosted on Ashley's channel, I'll go and I'll leave those non-American booktubers in the comments section that I follow. What are you all doing for your mental health? I don't have time, honestly, because I'm taking classes right now. So and on top of that, and I told Ashley this when we first talked, I had to read Incidents of a Slave Girl for class. And prior to that, I had to read Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. So, and this is all happening during the protests and the riots. And yeah, there was no mental health check going on. But after this, I am going to take a break from the news, take a break from social media, and just be for me. Anybody else?
I've been allowing myself to cry. So, like today, for instance, not only did I misgender Jesse, who was a friend, and that really fucked me up in the head, but then when I clicked out for a second, my mom told me my aunt has stomach cancer. So
no.
I'm a straight up mess right now. So I will be crying after this. But don't worry. I'll be cool after.
I just try to not watch the news every day. I try to just check in when I feel like I need to know something or if I'm curious about something. And then other than that, I try to used to be reading was my escape, but I can't sit still and I can't concentrate right now to read or sit still to read. I'm using audiobooks, but it's just too much going on. Like, what is self-care? Just like, what is time? I don't know what that is right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, hugging my kids sometimes. It's like laughing at the crazy stuff they do. And also like after, I mean, God, we're going on what, like almost 4 months of being stuck with 2 young children at home all the time, like the 4 of us, and like no childcare. And so one thing we recently started doing is taking Thursday nights off, and we like hang out, we have wine, we watch TV, we like don't work, and just like take several hours off because we've been working 24/7 between the 2 of us trying to like make our schedules work together, plus managing the kids and their school and everything. So yeah.
So Kari, what have you been doing for your mental health since you're like in the state where all of this went down?
I'm not in Minneapolis. I'm up north in Duluth.
Okay.
But I decided to accept a new job and move cities in the middle of the pandemic because that was intelligent. But here we are. I moved in with one of my cousins who has 3 kids and 2 dogs. So if I get stressed, I just go and watch them run around in the yard and jump on the trampoline and get knocked over by the dogs, and I'm good.
Ashley, did you want to go or no?
Can I ask a question? How are your guys' kids dealing with the quarantine? Hopefully well.
Yeah, I mean, we have wild boys who have lots of energy, and so it's like we have to somehow get them outside once a day if we can, if the weather is decent. And they get bored, I think, and it's like trying to like minimize screen use. I ended up buying them like blue light filtering glasses because with doing school online, they're seeing screens so much, and like they were like my kid was like blinking so much, and so that seems to have helped. But we're trying to like, I don't know, it's rough. We're very excited for schools to actually open in the fall. But yeah, and then they get sad too because like we have talked to them a little bit about what's going on right now too. And at least, well, the little one, like he's like 3, he doesn't really understand. But my 6-year-old, telling him like basically, I mean, he's 6, so like like, well, it's like this conversation of like, what are police supposed to do? And he'll be like, oh, well, they're supposed to help you. I'm like, yeah. I was like, well, so there are some bad police that killed somebody. And he was like, well, they should put them in jail. I was like, yes, they should. But like, that's why people are protesting and talking about that. He's like, they should stop hurting people. They should put them in jail. I'm like, you 6 and you figured that out pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, and I think that makes him sad, but like, it's also like part of, you know, trying to balance it out and not talk about it all the time. But like, you know, I think it's important for him to also know some of this stuff, even though he's young. You can't like, it's part of his world. I don't know. It's hard.
Understood.
I have stepsons. They're sorry. What'd you say, Neeks?
Oh, I was like, I wanted to know about Ashley's little baby, but she's gone. So I guess I don't know.
She's so
I'm here. I'm changing a diaper.
I have stepsons that are 11 and 12, and they do school online, and they have been since last semester. So it hasn't been that big of a transition for them with the coronavirus and all, but they have so many questions about the protests that I just have no idea how to answer. And I mean, I'm just a step parent, but like I try to default to their parents, but it's like they ask the questions that they ask are just really simple, and it's like you want to be able to give them a simple answer, like he killed this man, he's going to jail, but it's not, you know, it's not that simple, and they're too young to know about, you know, any of the previous murders. So, but they did hear about the 3 that we're talking about right now with Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud, and I've forgotten Ahmaud's last name. I'm so sorry, but what do you say to a 10 and 11-year-old? 11 and 12-year-old about, you know, why all this? You just have to kind of, I don't know what
you have to be as honest as you can,
yeah,
but yet still protect them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's tricky.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but I've been around kids. I've taught, and they're a lot more resilient,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand a lot more than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
So, and depending on the child,
Yeah.
Yeah.
depends on how well they receive it, and
Mm-hmm.
you just have to have the conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
might have to start off with something a little less intimidating and work your way up to that.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's no one solution that fits everything.
Right.
So, but anyway, so,
I don't know. I mean, this is not an immediate. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, this isn't like an immediate solution, but one thing that might be helpful, that I think would be about age appropriate, is Jason Reynolds has a book, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, which is like, sounds fun, but it deals with race and police brutality and gentrification and stuff, but in like a more age appropriate way that I think is good for like about that age.
Okay.
And it's a Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
But
I like to read, so that might be cool.
yeah, so like maybe check that out. Like the big bad in that is a racist who wants to put all the Black people in prison.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I read All American Boys by him, and I really enjoyed that. That was about some police incident that happened. Yeah, but
that's my husband. He doesn't know it.
oh yeah,
He doesn't. He doesn't know it, but that's my future husband. Just thought I would add that.
So, is making note of an author or main character's race helpful or divisive?
Depends. Why are you making a note of it?
Say that again.
Mhm.
I said it depends. Why are you making a note of it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for like own voices representation in books.
Yeah.
That a lot of people are looking for. So, you know, like in that case, yeah. And I think also there are people that I know are looking for books that do a good job of especially talking about Black female characters in a way that like describes them well and describes them as like beautiful, but not in like a vague way. So like, I don't know, like I hear I know I've heard Jesse from Booktubers Books talk about some of this on their channel. And yeah, so I think it depends on what you're talking about it for, but some people are looking for things that could be helpful to say.
And I think that if the character's race is integral to the book, then okay, you can make a note of it. But then again, I don't know that you would need to make a note of it. So I think that would be all on the reader. And that's not, I can't tell you whether or not that would be divisive. I guess it depends on how you use it. Once you make the note, are you giving a review and you're going to say, oh, that Black character, then maybe it could be considered divisive. So I don't know. What do you think are good next steps to keep this movement going and to make sure changes continue to make and like going and to make sure things continue to make progress?
I think people have to be real with themselves and hold themselves accountable. And we as a community have to start holding each other accountable. But what has bothered me a lot about us holding each other accountable is that when people are corrected, they get defensive. And I know a couple people have tweeted that, you know, if someone's correcting you about, you know, issues that we're talking about, like Black Lives Mattering, and you get defensive, that says a lot about you in the end. And I think the only way that we're going to make progress is that if you get checked or if someone corrects you, you have to be willing to take that constructive criticism. I'm not saying that somebody has to come through your mentions or whatever and curse you out. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you have to be willing to take that constructive criticism and work with it. Because if people keep putting their guard up, putting these walls up, and it's like, well, I just feel like I'm getting attacked. I feel like people are calling me out. If you get defensive, nothing's ever going to change. I may be like acting like the glass half empty, but it's reality that if people are not willing to do the work, or people are not willing to take constructive criticism, and people are not willing to continue, I don't know. It starts with the individual. I can't, for me personally, I can't, like, I think, Neeks, I think you said it earlier, the holding of hands right now, we can't do that anymore. Like, people have got to want to do this. If people don't want to do this, nothing is going to change. So it has to start at the individual. And I can't give steps for it. I can't give exact steps for that because I don't know who's really interested right now and who's not interested. Because I think somebody asked before, or somebody had stated before, there's a lot of performative activism going on right now. And that's the truth. And it's because people feel like they must, or they'll get canceled, or, you know, somebody's going to drag them on Twitter, or they're going to get embarrassed, or they're going to lose subscribers. So right now, we don't know. In a month or two, we may be able to see what we can continue to do. But I feel like when I say stuff like that, I sound so defeated. But it comes from experience with this community and knowing that we done seen the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't know if this time is really going to truly make a difference. I feel like if I give it some time and I wait and see, maybe. But right now, I don't know.
There's just like with racism itself, it's not on the Black Booktube community. You guys, does that make sense? It's not on us anymore. If you guys want to be allies, talking non-Black POC, white people, if you want to be allies, we can't make you ally. Like, you have to do the work yourself. You have to be the one to say, oh, I can relate to this booktuber, even though their skin's darker than mine. Like, that shouldn't matter anyway, but internal bias. You have to push past your own internal biases. It's something we can help you do. That's something you have to put the work into, if that makes sense.
Anybody else? No? So do you guys have any Black authors to recommend? Yeah.
Does Rebecca Roanhorse count? Because that book's right next to me. Does she
Is
count?
it good?
She
I haven't read that one.
Black and
Native
Native
American,
American.
right?
I mean, I had these up earlier. N.K. Jemisin and Alyssa Cole are both great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The city.
Yeah.
The city we became.
Oh, and I just got something in the mail today. Finally. Oh my gosh. This is one thing. Shop.org takes so much longer to like get you pre-orders, but I just got this.
Oh, I can't wait to read that.
Yeah. So like if you like YA fantasy, I hear very good things. I'm excited for that.
Oh,
So I don't even have to get up and move because I was gonna film my June TBR, my Pride Month TBR, which is nothing but Black authors, which I changed. So must read. I don't know if you can see it, Sister Outsider.
Oh yeah.
Audre Lorde. I read one essay and I was like, okay, this was done in, I can't remember, I want to say 1970 something. I could be totally wrong about that. Could be thinking about something else. But anyway, what she's talking about from then is happening right now. So it just shows that we're just coming back into this vicious cycle. And I'm rereading, and I'm doing a buddy read with Book Nerd TV and Unkindness of Ghosts, River Solomon. And I love them. I love them so much. I have The Deep on my shelf. I read that and I loved that. Oh my gosh. And by the way, I'm going to give a plug. Jesse's book club, the NB book club, they're reading this for July. So if you don't have it, go get it. Go get it now. Read it. It's good. Okay.
This right here is so wait.
Yes.
My face. This right here, Leah Johnson is hilarious. Okay. If y'all didn't see, she was interviewed with the author of The Henner Wars on I think it was Fadwa's Word Wonders. I think it was her channel, I think. Mm-hmm. But she's so funny. That book is hilarious, and I'm only like 12 pages in, and it's great. I think everybody should read. That's her debut novel. So,
Evan Winter.
Yes, The Rage of Dragons is so good.
Yes.
That.
I'm working
on like Beverly Jenkins. If you want to learn about history of people of color with some romance, like she does her research. Mm-hmm. And this is like one of my favorite books I've read this year. It's so good.
Let me go get a couple titles off my shelf. I keep all my Black books on a different shelf, so y'all give me 2 seconds.
You segregate your books.
I have like
I sure do.
Oh, I want to read that.
It's so good. And this one is like speculative, but it deals with police brutality and racism in the criminal justice system. Some of it takes place in prison, and it's a novella. It's very short. It's good.
Trevor Noah's book was really good.
I've heard.
Yeah, Mandela Told Me Adeyemi is really good.
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh God, I just had
Children of Blood and Bone or Children of Mercy and Vengeance.
I preferred the first one, but I did enjoy the second one enough that I will go to the third.
Okay.
Everyone prefers the first one.
The second one just felt really short.
It was like 400 pages less than the first one.
Right? Like, I appreciate that it was shorter, but I mean, there's just so much there, and I wanted so much more that I didn't get.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
While Ashley is gone, I'm going to plug her video. She has a reading vlog of Children of Blood and Bone and Children of Virtue and Vengeance. So, oh Lord, Ashley.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, we asked the librarian to go find us some books.
Yeah, no, I mentioned, I don't know. I mean, Ashley, who knows if you've actually seen it, but like in my latest wrap up, I actually linked her video because I did not like Children of Virtue and Vengeance, and I was like,
was trash.
It wasn't okay. I'm in the Tomi Adeyemi masterclass. I cannot say bad things. However, know that I had problems with one of those books, and it was not the first one.
It was trash, okay? And I really loved the first book, but I don't know what happened. It was a crash and burn. Okay, so Americana, which I'm sure most of you have already heard of. I love this one. It's time for me to do a reread. Both of these actually, Americana and Behold the Dreamers, are really good books if you want to look at the what do we call it, y'all? The Great American Dream or the American Dream? So these two are really good looks at that. If you're looking for I don't know if everybody's read these, but the Cartel books. If you never read them, child, the Cartel books are really good. If you're Black, you should have read this book. Let me not, because I'm probably gonna hurt somebody's feelings. Coldest Winter Ever. We all grew up with this book, sneaking it in middle school.
Yes,
we weren't supposed to be reading this book. You definitely need to read that.
Yes.
I have not read this one, but I have read Eric Jerome Dickey before. He's another great Black author to check out. If you're looking for more of the kids side, I definitely would recommend One Crazy Summer, PSB 11, Gone Crazy in Alabama. That whole trilogy is a great look. One Crazy Summer, 3 girls going to visit their mother in Oakland, California, and she's a part of the Black Panthers. So if you're looking for some stuff for your kids, I would recommend that. We talked about All American Boys. Jason Reynolds, just all around, is a good author to check out. I'm so surprised I have not seen anybody on Booktube talk about this author, and she's an OG, Sharon Draper. I don't know why no one talks about Sharon Draper, but you want to talk about an OG children's and YA author. She's a little bit more old school, but Copper Sun is a really good one to pick up if you're looking for a YA book that captures a slave narrative. And then this one is also a little bit more old school. I don't know how many people have heard of it, but it's another YA book, and it's the Drama High series by Elle Devine. I know, at least in my generation, I think these were around. They may be kind of in between my generation and generation after. So I have more, but I'm not gonna blow y'all through the roof with the stuff that I would recommend. I do have a thread on my Twitter page where I've linked not everything that I've ever read, but I've linked quite a bit from picture books to children's to middle grade to YA to adult, if y'all are looking for something to read.
So I just want to say this. I Am Enough. This is a great picture book. I bought it for myself because, well, oh my gosh, I bought it for the images alone, the artwork alone. But it's a great story. And the other one is oh my gosh, I can't think of the actress's name now. Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah, you're talking about Soulway?
Soulway, yes.
Yeah.
That is, and I was gonna buy it before the bookstore went on lockdown, and I was like, oh, I can't get it now, but and I refused to order it because then I have to pay for shipping, and I'm cheap, so yeah.
I know there have been some people in the comments who've talked about also having mixed kids, and Mixed Me is a great picture book if you have mixed kids. It's super cute. And I think I saw, because Macmillan like sends me their catalog and stuff. I think they've either just come out with or about to come out with it in a board book, which is great. So, and then Roxane Gay is great. This is a short story collection, Aidi, and so if you want like more of an international take on like Blackness, this is like it's the Haitian diaspora or like characters in this. And then one you should pre-order, it's coming out in August and is amazing, is Reindeer by Jordan Fuego. It's incredible YA fantasy. It's so smart. It's got like twists and turns you will not expect. And it's her debut coming out through Abrams Books. So it's like a smaller publisher. So I don't know how many people know as much about it, but like it's fantastic.
Andrea Stewart, also, her book Sugar in the Blood is fantastic. She talks about her genealogy. She's mixed race. And so she goes back on both sides, white and black, all the way back to the 1600s when her first white ancestor came over. And then she traces both sides down to her and their plantation and the racism and the problems that she's experienced because of that. It was really fascinating.
And I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Is that nonfiction?
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's nonfiction. So Kindred, kind of piggybacking off of that. I love Octavia Butler, and Kindred was my first introduction to her. And I had I read the novel first, and then I had the brightest idea to follow it up with reading the graphic novel. Don't do that. Because I mean it's the novel is graphic. It depicts what happens, but then when you go back and you reread it, graphic novel, and you see the images, it's super, for me anyway, it was really overwhelming just for the images alone. And
Terrible like that.
Go ahead.
I was just adding Parable, the sower is like that.
Yeah. They so I hope you guys had written in melanin had a pen. A lot of books. But there's
replay.
Yeah.
Get watch time on Ashley's channel.
Yeah. So my son is Black and Puerto Rican. Are there any stories reflecting that experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot what they're called. I literally just went down a list the other day. I'm the user.
So
Miles Morales Spider-Man, I don't know if he's Puerto Rican and Black but he's Latinx and Black, I think. So I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read it, so I'm not sure.
You are correct. I don't think any of us know what specific Latinx.
Yeah.
Is that where that word comes in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I've just been Black my whole life, guys. I'm learning as well.
Yeah. Or Afro Latinx, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but
oh, somebody's saying in the comments he's half Puerto Rican and Black. So there you go. Perfect.
And I may be overstepping, but if I am, Adri from Perpetual Pages, because I know they read a lot of Latinx literature.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I want to, I don't know. I'm not going to say what I think.
They read a lot of middle grade also, so that
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So if Audrey, if you've got any recommendations,
that would be a good resource. So one more question, anybody? If you have, speak now or forever hold your peace, but continue to be an ally.
continue to protest for peace.
I think somebody asked earlier if we were going to be doing this regularly.
Oh, okay.
Erica, because you're the brains behind this, so you know.
Let's discuss that offline.
So the answer is not necessarily no.
Oh wait, we got one question. There we go. Wait. There we go.
I want to start a channel.
Do it.
Any advice on starting a channel?
Just do it.
Just do it. Like,
I mean,
doesn't Nike say that?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. I mean, it's hard work. If you want to know about equipment, I use my laptop to film. Sometimes when my laptop is acting up, I use my phone. I have a ring light. I have a tripod. I don't have anything fancy, so I don't know what everybody else has.
I use my phone for now.
I dropped some dough.
It's another reason why I'm mad.
This was pre-child, okay? I was single, working full time. I dropped some money, but y'all, I mean, I started out using my phone. I used a laptop camera. I used a webcam. Just go for it. The equipment is not clearly. Let me just make. The equipment has nothing to do with it at all, because I've had the equipment for 2 years and it hasn't made a damn difference. So don't worry about the equipment. Just go for it. Shoot for it. I just, if it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you're wanting to do, just go for it. I hate that sometimes this community makes people feel like they have to have certain, not even just look a certain way, but you have to have certain equipment. Your bookshelves have to look a certain way. You got to have all these. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but don't buy into any of that. Just do what you want to do. Don't worry about what everybody else has going on.
And I just want to, if you watch Cindy Reads with Cindy, she doesn't have any books in her background. She has the book that she's reading, and maybe not even that, because she believes in utilizing the library. And so if you are concerned that you don't have the books, don't worry about it. Because you're still, however you consume your media, whether it's from the library, whether it's audiobook, just read and get back with us. Erica, I love the tigers in your background. I'm sorry. That was kind of self-indulgent. Thank you, Emery.
Use your library. Yeah. I am telling you this as a librarian. Use your library, y'all. I see too many people across Booktube who are like, my library sucks. They don't have enough choices. Well, that's because if you don't use your library, there's no reason for anybody to advocate for your library to get more money. And if they don't have money, they can't buy stuff. So you have to use it, because it is a numbers game with us too. So we have to look at our data, how many items are circulating, to determine how much funding we get. If you don't use it, we get no money. Your libraries don't have good selections. So use them.
Yep.
That's right.
Agreed.
So
that Libby app is good.
Yeah.
That's who flies much, but the Libby app is great. I like the audiobook that they use.
Yes.
Right now I have like 4 books checked out from Libby and 2 audiobooks. I don't have no idea how I'm gonna get to it, because now I have to read Frederick Douglass. This is not a history class, by the way. This is a lit class, and we started from the beginning. When I say the beginning of American literature. So we started off with Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm losing my mind right now. I almost wish it was a history class, but anyway, I could go on. Go ahead, Kari.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want to read a black woman in I think it's the 1850s, yeah, because it's Crimean War, dragging Americans very nicely, read Mary Seacole's work, because that's great.
Okay. Mary Siegel. I don't. We might get to Mary Siegel.
Yeah, she was a nurse in the Crimean War.
Okay. Another before we go, people are always talking. Well, people have been asking about being educated, and one of my things is if we were talking about learning about the past in order to move forward, one of the things that I recommend is reading slave narratives, because that's a depiction of slavery and how and what those slaves went through. So if you just Google slave narratives, and you will come up with a whole list. There are over 500 slave narratives out there. So Google them, and happy reading. Anything else? Anybody want to add anything else before we wrap up?
I'm sorry for crying. That's not something I normally do. I'm very embarrassed.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah, no.
You got.
Do not be embarrassed for crying.
It happens.
You know they like to give us that narrative. Don't be embarrassed.
I'm fighting a lot right now, mentally. Fighting a lot up here.
It's okay. It's okay. So
it was fun though. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was great, y'all.
Thanks for everything.
Just real quick, yes, we all are on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So and
IG?
And IG. I don't know if everybody is on IG. Yeah.
I am.
So yeah, you can find us there. You'll have to go to our channels to find our Twitter and IG handles. So there you have it. Well, we have been at this for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And Ashley's baby was supposed to be in bed an hour ago. And I
yes, she is.
Staying up and being patient with us. So, but we are going to let Ashley's baby go to bed. And we'll talk about whether or not to do this again. So I make no promise. So if you guys really want to see more of us, definitely let us know. And we will take it into consideration. Oh, please do. Thanks, Books, McD. So, but feel free to let us know, and we will take that under advisement. So I appreciate you guys for spending your evening with us, and we will see you guys later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
All right. Bye.